before we start this program that whenever the employee is working in the organization, what are the rights these employees are having towards the organization, that what are the basic responsibility which they have to look after. So first of all, we are just going to talk about the aims and the outcomes, that what are the basic aim for employees responsibilities. This topic is going to cover the employment rights and responsibilities in organization policies and the procedures, waste and recycling industry and career opportunities within the sector. The primary aim of this package or the topic is to support the students' successful completion of the technical certificate assessment unit in employment rights and responsibility. This is a certificate which is given by the government of India regarding the rights and the responsibility legislation are concerned. The objective of this session is to give you an idea about the outline of the basic details of legislation relating to the employment law, key aim of employment legislation in protecting the rights of the employee at the work, and the main aim of legislation provides protection against discrimination at the work. So here, if you see that there are three main objectives which we are going to talk about. Number one is the basic details of the legislation related to the employment law. Number two is the employment legislation in protecting the rights of employees at the work. And number three is the legislation providing the protection against discrimination at the work. So these are the basic objective of this session. Now we are going to discuss that what are the employment legislation. There are following primary items of legislation relating to the employment. Number one is Employment Right Act 1996, Employment Relation Act 2004, and Employment Act 2008. So there are three type of employment legislation laws which are established by the government, and these are Employment Right Act 1996, Employment Relation Act 2004, and Employment Act 2008. So we are going to take one by one. So first one is Employment Right Act 1996. That what are the things in that particular act? So the primary aim of the act are to provide basic employment protection for workers. The workers who are working in the organization, what protection they are getting. So this acts come into existence because of only one reason, that what are the protection we can provide to the workers who are working in the organization. The main area covers related to this Act 1996 is wages rules. Establishes minimum procedures for making wages payment. That means that there should be a establishment of minimum wages procedure within the organization. It makes unauthorized wage deductions illegal. In this law, they say if there are some unauthorized deduction, it is illegal. Then it requires employer to make a guaranteed payment even when the employer cannot find work. That means this act says, that means Employment Right Act 1996 says, if there is no work for the workers or maybe for the organization, but employer has to pay the guaranteed payment to the employee. This establishes specific requirement for Sunday working. Yes, in this law they have also given a provision, if employer is asking employee to work on Sunday, there must be a specific requirement for that. Either it is in the form of extra money or maybe something else. Then it requires the employer to provide a statement of employment. This is important, that as per the Employment Act 1996, they said that it is the duty of employer to provide a statement of employment act, which is known as contract of employment. That means the mm, letter from the employer side that okay, this person is employed in our organization. Okay, then we are going to talk about another act in continuation, time of work. The working timing should be flexible. It should not be fixed. Then it entitles employees to paid holiday leave from commencement of employment. That means the day the employee joined the organization, he or she is entitled for the holiday leave. The entitles employees to have time off that may be owed to personal needs such as antenatal care, training, or public duties. That means they are saying that in this Employment Right Act, there are provision which says the employees to have time off that they own to the personal needs such as antenatal care, maybe the training or the publications. When the employee is doing these work, they can take off from the organization, but they will get the salary for that. It provides overreaching guidance on the requirement for statutory maternity and paternity leave. Yes, this is another point which comes under this act, which says that during the maternity and paternity leave, they are going to provide this thing to the employees. So this is the role of the employer to see that how they are going to provide these type of leaves to the employee. Then dismissal and redundancy lays down requirements that companies must adopt related to dismissal procedure. There are some companies, what they are doing, they are, if they are interested in dismissing the employee, maybe they can put up a new thing which says that we are layoff, we are doing the lay down, so we don't require the people. This comes under this act, they cannot do that. This provides the right to receive fair compensation in relation to cases of unfair dismissal from work. That means that this act says, Employment Act 1996 says, that if there is unfair uh, dismissal of employee from the work, so employee has the right to receive fair compensation regarding that. So this is very, very important to understand that these employment rights are important for the worker so that at least they feel secure while working in the organization. Then the next point says it provides the requirement for an employer to make payment in respect of the redundancy. That means they are saying that it is the role of the employer or the duty of the employer to pay the compensation in respect of the redundancy. That means they are saying that you cannot lay off the people, you cannot dismiss the people until unless you have solid proof for that. If you don't have that, then you have to pay the proper compensation to the employee to whom you want to dismiss from the job. Then dispute resolution, this is another point which comes into this act, which says that if there is any dispute between the employee and the employer, the dispute has to be resolved at the company level also, and in case if they are not able to do that, that arbitrator has to be put up there. Then it lays down a requirement for a company to have a fair disciplinary and grievance procedure. This act says that there should be one grievance and disciplinary committee which take care of the employees' grievances as well as the disciplinary action fairly. Then it provides the right for an employee to refer an employment dispute related to employment dismissal etc to an unemployment tribunal. That means they are saying that this act provide the right for an employee to refer an employment dispute if the employee is working and they have some employment dispute. In that situation, the employee find that okay, it is going to be dismissal for him, so in that case employee can go to the employment tribunal where he can lodge a complaint and then he can fight for his rights. Then this is first act which is known as Employment Act, Rights Act 1996, which includes lot of things, that is the time period, then dismissal, then other things also, various rules which has to be helping the employees to work in the organization with free mind. Then there is another act which is known as Employees Relation Act in 2004. The key points in these acts are trade union recognition. It is essential, as per this act says, that there must be a trade union who can take the employees' complaints to the higher ups in the organization, but it total depends upon the size of the company. So if it is a big size company, definitely the trade union comes into existence. And if it is a small union, I don't think there is any need for the trade union to go into that, because the employee is directly in touch with the HR department or the management to put up their complaint. Then industrial action value procedure that must be adopted by unions. There are some industrial action values which says that they can put up some complaints in the ballot boxes, and these trade union take care of those complaints, and then they will put up in front of the management. Then unfair dismissal of strikers. Sometimes it happens in the big organization, there was a strike, and because of the strike the employer say that we are going to dismiss you. So it is also seen in this act, which is known as Employment Relation Act 2004, that you cannot dismiss any person unfairly if they are on a strike. Then flexible working hours, it is there that it is very very important that you should have a flexible working hour. It should not be a fixed working hour. Then time off for dependents, caring arrangements for close relatives. Sometimes it happens there are employees who, some people are dependent on those employees. So in that say, that act says that they can have the right to take duty off for the caring arrangements. That is also there. Then employment tribunal awards, maximum levels type of awards, that these awards are giving to the employees who are doing the work properly. Then right to be a complaint in disciplinary and grievance hearing. Then the employees have the right to be accompanied in disciplinary and grievance hearing. That means if there is any uh, grievance committee in the organization, so it is the dutiful right of the employee also to sit there and hear the things what they are discussing about it. So it is the right of the employee, and you cannot deny the right of this employee that what you are discussing about it. Part-time work, equality with full-time work in terms of pay, work condition, and holiday, etc. As per the Employment Relation Act 2004, they are saying that the part-time workers who are working in the organization, they should be equal with the full-time worker in terms of pay, work condition, or holidays. But in most of the private organization, it is not followed. If you are working half time, you are getting half pay. But as per the Employees Relation Act 2004, it should not like that. Whatever the salaries uh, full-time worker is getting, part-time worker should also get the same salary. This is very very important. Then there is another act which is known as Employment Act 2008. In this act, they said the resolving disputes in the workplace. That means that whatever the disputes arises among the employees or among the employee and employer, it should be resolved within the organization itself after discussion, right? Then national minimum wage and employment agency standards enforcement. That means that they have to enforce the national minimum wage policy and the employment agency standards. This is compulsory for each and every organization that they have to follow the minimum wage act, national act, as well as the employment agency standards, that whatever the rules are made for the employment of the people, you have to follow those things. Then voluntary workers, This Employment Act 2008 says that you have to take care of the voluntary workers also and trade union membership. That they are saying that wherever there is a trade union, the membership has to be taken by each and every employee who are working in the organization so that at least they can cover with the trade union act. The next is Equal Pay Act. As I have discussed you about three type of acts. Number one is Relationship Act. Number two is Employees Equality Employment Right Act, and then we have discussed about the Employment Act. Now we are going to talk about the Equal Pay Act. What is this act? This act establishes requirements for equal pay for both men and women in the same establishment. That means they are saying if there are male and females working in the same organization, they have to pay equal to both the people in the same establishment and at the same cadre. If they are at different cadre, automatically the salary will be different. But if they are at the same level, definitely they should be getting the same pay. The method of determining whether pay is equal is based on a review of the job content, not the job title or name. They are saying that the method of determining, that means the finding out the method whether the pay is equal, it is totally based on the job content, that what type of job people are doing, whether it is male or female, and not the job title or the name. So Equal Pay Act says that each and every person who is working in the organization have to get the equal salaries as per the job requirement is concerned, but it is only established with the finding out the job content and not the job title. The next act, which is known as Data Protection Act. This act laid down requirements related to keeping the data about individual, including workers, on company files. Yes, it is the role of HR to keep the data of the employee in the file, including the workers also. And this act requires companies keeping certain type of data to be registered with the Information Commissioner's office. That means that whatever the data are kept by the organization, it is their responsibility to register their data with the Information Commissioner office. It is mandatory. Then the act lay down key requirements of storing the data. It established an 8-point rule requiring their personal information should be. That means that whatever the data this HR department is keeping for the employees, this includes 8 points. So these points are fairly and lawful proceeds. That means that whatever is there, it should be very fair and lawful. Processed for limited purposes. That means that it is only processed for the limited purposes. Adequate, relevant, and not excessive. That whatever the data is there in the file, it should be adequate to know about the employee, and it should not be excessive one. It should be accurate, not manipulated. Not kept longer than necessary. That means that it should not kept for too long period. Maybe after some time you have to take another data because the things changes. Then proceeds in accordance with your rights. That means they are saying that as per the rights, you have to process the data. Then it is kept secure, it is confidential, and it is not transferred abroad without adequate protection. That means that it cannot be transferred from one place to another place without any adequate security. So if you see, the Data Protection Act is also one of the important part of any organization which are keeping all the details about the employee, but it should be accurate, fair, and it should not kept longer than necessary. And it has to be processed as per the rights are concerned, and it should be kept secured. Then another point is, what is National Minimum Wage Act? As I have talked to you about it, that according to the National Minimum Wage Act, each and every employee or worker has to get the salary, and it has to be registered with the commissioner of employees employees proceduring. The act does apply to the full-time workers, part-time workers, casual workers, agency workers, piece workers, including home workers. Piece worker means the people who are working in the companies who are making the, let's take example, we can take example of they are making the trousers. So on the basis of each trouser they are getting the money. So this minimum wage act also apply in that condition also. And this act does not apply on certain things. Number one is genuinely self-employed people, voluntary workers, workers who are based permanently outside the country, apprentice under 19 year of age, apprentice over 19 years of age in their first year of training. So these are the minimum wage act which are not applied on these people, whether these people are voluntary workers, whether they are based outside the country, apprentice under 19 years of age or apprentice above the 19 years of age during their first year of training, or genuinely self-employed. Then this act, that means minimum wage act, become law in 1999. Payment is based on recommendations of the low pay commission. That means there is a commission which is known as low pay commission, and the payments are based on the recommendation of these commission. There are four rates of pay that may be applicable as per the low pay commission. Number one is the main national minimum wage rate applies to workers aged 21 and over. Then new minimum wage act development rate applies to 18 to 20 years old. The third national minimum wage rate applies to under 18 olds and apprentice who are 16 to 18 or 19 or over in their first year of training. So these are four type of rates which are prevailing in the market, and as per these rates, company has to provide minimum wages to the people who are working in the organization. Then employment rights and responsibilities legislation. So in this, the following questions arises. What are the two main reasons that an employer may consider making an employee redundant? Then what is the primary piece of legislation that requires an employer to provide a statement of employment term and condition? And if you have an income company dispute with your employer, or you feel you have been unfairly dismissed, what arrangements are in place to establish that your case has been handled fairly by your employer? To whom should you refer the matter? So these are the things which usually arises, and the answers are: first question, which says that what are the two main reasons that employer may consider making an employee redundant? That means the company ceases or intend to cease trading. That means redundant can only be happen when the company ceases. That means stop working, or they are planning to stop working. Then the requirement of the business for the employee to carry out the work has ceased or diminished. That means whatever the business is going on, in that situation the requirement of the employee is minimized or diminished, then only the things will come up, and the employer think that we have to redund the people. Then what is the primary piece of legislation requiring an employer to provide a statement of employment term and condition? This is Employment Right Act 1996. Then if you have an in-company dispute with your employer, or you feel you have unfair dismissal, what arrangements are in place to establish that your case has been handled fairly by your employer? To whom you should refer this matter? So the matter could be referred to the conciliation through an organization such as ACAS, who mediate between both the parties. This is a organization known as ACAS, who are always being a mediator between the employee and the employer in case of any dispute. The matter could be referred independently to an employment tribunal who will independently review the claim. That means the employment tribunal is the place where you can lodge your complaint and that can be taken care by them individually. Industrial tribunals should be referred to the tribunal services also. That means there are some industrial tribunals also. They can also look the case. So in case of any dispute and the hearing which you think that you are not fairly treated, in that situation, you can go to the employment exchange, or you can say that it is employment it is basically it is the ACAs, or it is referred to the employment tribunal or the industrial tribunal act. Then Equality Act 2010, this is another act which comes. It replaces most of the Disability Discrimination Act. That means that in the organization maybe there are some people who are disabled but they are working in the organization. So this act works for that. Then Race Relations Act. There are Race Relation Act all there, which save the people against the various races which takes place in the organization. Sex discrimination is also one of that. Then Employment Equality Act. That means it is related to the religion, belief, sexual orientation, or age. This Equality Act means that you have to treat your employees equally, whether they are belonging to any race, whether they are of any age, religion, and belief on everything. This has to be taken care by the organization. Then, what are the meaning of these equality? That means everyone having the same chance, treating the people fairly who are working in the organization, then equal opportunities to apply for jobs and promotions. That means in the organization you cannot discriminate the people, so it should be an equal opportunity for each and every person. Then reducing the obstacle or barriers to services. That means that whatever the obstacles are there regarding the services are concerned, it has to be reduced. Then creating environment that encourages inclusively. It is the role of the organization, or it is the role of the Equality Act, which create an environment that encourages each and every individual employees inclusively. So you have to understand that Equality Act is also very very important when it comes to the existence in 2010. Then next point, what they are talking about, what do mean by diversity? As we were talking about Equality Act, we are talking about different Relationship Act. We are talking about different employment tribunals and industrial tribunals. Now they are saying, what do you mean by diversity? Mix of different kind of people. As you know, in the organization there are different type of people which are related with the either with the age, sex, race, disability, and religion. So you'll find each type of people in the organization. That means multicultural organization, welcoming, embracing, and encouraging the differences between the individual. Diversity says that if there are different type of people working in the organization, it has to be welcomed by the organization, encourage the differences between the individual to be finished, and then they have to see that with the help of this multi-dimension people in the organization, you can maybe you can find out very good solution for your problems. So it is always said that diversity is also one of the important part for any organization. Then it is concerned with the inclusion, dignity, and respecting the differences. That means that whatever the differences are there, it should be respected, dignity should be maintained, and it should include all the concerns working in the organization, that they should be treated very well. And whatever the diversifications are there within the organization among the employees, it has to be treated in a very very fairly manner. Then, if we say what do you mean by equality and diversity, everyone has certain legal right, regardless of age, sex, disability, race, religion, belief, sexual orientation, gender reassignment, marriage, civil partnership, or the pregnancy and maternity. That means they are saying that in equality and diversity, everyone is having the legal rights regardless of these things. Then we are talking about policy related with equality and diversity. Each organization should promote equality and value diversity by treating people fairly and give everyone with the right skills the same chances to compete for job or promotion. That means it is the role of the organization to promote equality and value diversity by treating the people equally and fairly and giving the chance to each and every employee to develop themselves for completing the job effectively and for the promotions also. Then everybody should have access to the training. It should not like that no, we are giving training to only a certain amount of people and we are not giving training to any other people. No, it should be to each and every employee who are working in the organization. Then equal opportunity in applying for the post. That means that if there are some posts vacant in the organization, equal opportunity should be given to each and every person who are at that particular level or who are um, skillful and knowledgeable and qualify for that particular post. Now there is, it encourages a diversity of the population to apply for roles. That means that if these things are there, if these things exist in the organization, this encourages the people to apply for the posts prevailing in that particular organization. Then the question comes, why do you think using a clearly published equality and diversity policy can support the success of the business? This is very good question, that how equality and diversity policy help the success of the business. It makes good sense, show a commitment to promoting equality and diversity, good advert for the organization, for employees and potential employees, stakeholders and customers. That means that this question says if your organization is working on the pattern of equality and diversity, definitely you will see that you are getting good employees and potential employees, and the people who are working in the organization are also become potential. Then you are giving a positive sign to the stakeholders and the customers that how we are working in the organization. And you can attract a wide range of people, benefit staffs, client and customer. That means if you are going for the equality and diversity, which create a very very positive environment for your organization and everybody is motivated, in that situation you can benefit the staff, your clients and customers, which will give you a moral boosting for the development of your organization. Because if employee is happy and getting some extra benefit regarding their work is concerned, definitely they will work for the betterment of the organization. Then demonstrate a commitment to employees with aim and goals, line of responsibility on reporting discrimination and grievances. That means that it is the role of the organization to see that how they are demonstrating a commitment to employees with the aims and the goals, that whatever the organizational aims are there and whatever the goals are there, organization has to demonstrate the commitment for that, and they have to specify the line of responsibility regarding the employees are concerned, and looking after the discrimination and grievances effectively and fairly, so that the things become much more better for the organization. Then we are saying that in organization employment policies and the procedures, what are that? Objective of this session is what? The purpose of the statement of employment and supporting the handbooks, outline the range of procedures contained in the statement of employment and the typical employment arrangement that must be put in place by companies to comply with the employment law requirements. So these are the things which we are going to talk about this in this session. So if we talk about the statement of employment, what exactly is that? A statement of employment must be provided to an employee, as I have discussed this thing just now, that there should be a statement of employment from the employer side, as per the act says, to an employee within 2 months of starting of the work if the employment lasts for longer than 1 month. They are saying that within 2 months, statement of employment has to be given to the employee. It must include the name of the employer and your name, the date your employment started, your job title, and a summary of your duties, the period of employment, stating whether it is permanent position or it is temporary position, the place of work, how much you will be paid and how often you are going to be paid, and the method of payment. It should also include information such as traveling allowances and other deduction from the pay, hours of work, holiday entitlement, procedures for dealing with absence from work through illness or for other reasons, and how to notify the employer if absent. Then details of pension scheme if applicable, details of how to terminate employment, for example, length of notice required by both you and your employer. Disciplinary rules and procedures, these are usually contained in a separate document such as a staff handbook. Then grievance procedures, which again could be contained in the staff handbook. So these two things are in the staff handbook, which is the disciplinary procedures as well as the grievance procedure. But apart from that, these are the things which you have to be put up in the statement of employment within the 2 month of the starting of work, provided it continue work after 1 year, 1 month also. Then they are saying entitlement to paid leave. As in the organization, we always discuss about this thing, that what, whether we have paid leave, whether we don't have paid leave, what is that. There are a lot of confusion between the employees, they are not clear about these things. So this says that the entitlement to paid holiday leave start from the commencement of the job. That means the day you start the job, the entitlement for the paid leave starts. The entitlement is 5.6 weeks, that is 28 days for someone working a 5 days. Then compressed or casual work may be calculated differently. That means if it is a compressed work or the casual work, it is calculated differently. The employer may include public holidays as part of the annual leave entitlement and may set the time when you take holidays, such as during the Christmas shutdown. That means that employers, what they are doing, they are including the public holidays in your annual leave assignments, and they are setting the time when you are taking the leaves, such as during the Christmas shutdown or maybe some other festival. They are including all these public holidays into that. And if your employment ends and you have leave due, you have a right to be paid for the leave time due and not taken. This should happen in all the good organizations. If you have not taken the leaves and it is still pending after completion of the stipulated time period, they are going to get the paid leaves for that. Time of work may also be permitted to carry out other duties, such as dealing with emergencies involving the dependents. Second is jury services, trade union duties. That means these are the three things which comes under the time of work. Organization cannot deny anybody to stop doing this thing or stop taking this thing, because it is against the law. That means during the emergencies, jury duty services, maybe somebody is having some cases in the court and they have to appear in the court, you cannot deny that, you cannot ask, that court cannot ask an employee to come. And the trade union duties, these items are normally on an unpaid basis, unless referred to otherwise in your employment statement. Jury service attracts an allowance from the court. That means if somebody is going to court, court is going to pay for that particular day to the employee. Then working hours. Legal requirements for working are laid down in the working time regulations by the organizations itself, but it should not like that. Workers aged 18 or over cannot be forced to work for more than 48 hours a week on an average. Most workers can agree in writing to work longer than 48 hours limit. The agreement must be signed by the worker. The worker can, with notice, then opt out of this agreement at a later date. That means that 48 hours working limit is there and it has to be signed between the worker and the organization that they have to work. And in case if they want to opt out of this agreement, it can be taken on the later dates also. Young workers under 18 year of age are restricted to a maximum working of 40 hours and each working day must be no longer than 8 hours. So these are the tendency which we have to see when we are talking about the working hours. Then we are talking about termination of employment. An employer must provide fair and reasonable ground for dismissal. If you have been in employment for 12 months or more than, then a claim of unfair dismissal can be made to an employment tribunal if the grounds are deemed to be unfair. That means that if you are more than 12 years working, in that situation, you can always put up a case in the employment tribunal on the ground of unfair means. Then there are exceptions in relation to the 12-month period. For example, a case of unfair dismissal on the grounds of discrimination can be brought at any time. That means if there is a unfair, you know, dismissal or on the basis of the discrimination, these cases can be taken anytime. The notice period for a dismissal should be minimum according to the following: 1 week if employment employed between 1 month or 2 years, an additional week notice for every continuous year of employment between 2 to 12 years. Minimum 12 weeks notice if it is continuous employment for 12 years or more. That means 12 years, that means 12-week notice means 4 months. Then in company employment policies and procedures, what procedure should be used by a company to deal with issues related to poor work performance? Is it acceptable for an employer to just give you a letter advice of your instant dismissal? What is the minimum period of notice that must be provided to an employee who has 8 years to survey with a company? The answers are the disciplinary procedure, first answer. Second, it is acceptable for an employer to just give you a letter advising of your instant dismissal. A letter must be provided stating that the disciplinary action under the disciplinary procedure is taking place, including the ground for the disciplinary action. A hearing must be arranged at which the employee has the right to be accompanied by a few colleagues or trade union official in order that they can state their case against the claims that have been made. And a decision of any action under the disciplinary procedure is then forwarded to the employee, and a right of appeal must be also provided. Then they are saying that another point which comes into notice is that what is the minimum period of notice? 1 week for the first 2 years of service plus an additional week for the remaining years of service. Over 2 years comes to a total of 7 weeks notice. Then regarding the wages are concerned, an employer is required by law to provide an itemized pay slip showing the following: the gross wages earned before deduction, the amount and of and reasons for any deduction, for example, national insurance, etc. The net or take home pay. An employer is legally required to keep records of the payment made, including any deduction. The rate of pay in similar companies is often negotiated between employer and the employee. The minimum rate of pay must be in the line with the National Minimum Wages Act. In the big companies, pay rates and working conditions may be determined collectively between an employer and the trade unions. The next point is sick waves. What is this? Sick pay. Procedures for reporting in sick are normally laid out in the Statement of Employment or Staff Handbook. In most cases, you will be required to submit a self certificate of sickness for a period of up to 7 days. Sickness period over 7 days normally require a medical certificate provided by the GP, that means general practitioner. Your employer will expect you to notify him or her of your inability to work due to sickness as soon as possible and to keep them updated on progress if the sickness period becomes longer enough. If you are sick for 4 consecutive days or more, you are entitled to statutory sick pay, that is known as SSP. Then statutory sick pay is paid by the employer in the same way that wages are paid. Redundancy. Employees employed over 2 years have the right to a lump sum redundancy payment if they are dismissed before of redundancy. That means they are saying that employees who are working in the organization for more than 2 years, they are entitled for a lump sum amount from the employer. The amount of redundancy pay is related to the employee's age, length of continuous service with the employer, and weekly pay up to a maximum. That means these three things come into redundancy, which says the employee's age, length of continuous service, and the weekly pay up to maximum level. Then the employer must provide a written statement showing how the payment has been calculated at or before the time it is paid. Then employees, you are not entitled to a stationary redundancy payment if your employer either offers to keep you on, offers you suitable alternative work, which you refuse without good reasons, or if you leave your job for a new one before the end of your notice period. Your statutory payment might also be effective. So this is also there. Then we talk about the if your employer has selected you for redundancy, you must be given a notice period before your employment ends. The statutory redundancy notice period are at least 1 week's notice if you have been employed between 1 month and 2 years. 1 week notice for each year if employed between 2 to 12 years. 12 weeks notice if employed for 12 years or more. However, you should also check your contract of employment because your employer could have set out longer notice periods also. The next is maternity pregnancy leave. It is a paid time off for antenatal care. Maternity leave is there, maternity pay is there, pay benefits are there, protection against unfair treatment or dismissal is there. Employers also have certain obligation to ensure the health and safety of the pregnant employees. Then there is another thing which usually prevails in the organization, father to be. Fathers do not have a legal right to time off to accompany their partners to antenatal appointment, as the right to paid time off only applies to pregnant employees. However, many companies recognize how important a time this is and let their employees either take paid time off or make up the time later. The same with the maternity leave, as we are talking about it, all pregnant employees are entitled for 52 weeks of maternity leaves. Pregnant employee who meet qualifying condition based on their length of services and average earning per entitled up to 39 weeks of statutory maternity pay. Women who are not entitled to SMP but meet qualifying condition based on their recent employment and earning may claim up to 39 weeks of maternity allowances paid directly by the job center plus. Then they are saying that there are other things which comes under the maternity leaves, that the employers may make reasonable contracts with a woman on maternity leave. Then employees who wish to return to work either earlier or later than agreed with the employer should provide 8 weeks notice. Employees normally have a right to return to the same job after maternity leave. The next is paternity leave. Employees must satisfy the following condition while taking the paternity leave: have or expect to have responsibility for the child upbringing, be the biological father of the child, or the mother's husband have worked continuously for their employer for 26 weeks, ending with the 15th week before the baby is due. Employers can ask their employee to provide a salary certificate. Eligible employees can choose to take either 1 or 2 weeks of leave. Then another point in the paternity leave comes that it starts from the date of the child's birth, whether this is earlier or later. During their paternity leave, most employees are entitled on statutory paternity leave for their employers. So statutory paternity pay is paid by employers for their 1 or 2 consecutive weeks as the employees has chosen. Then next is pension. What is pension? Any occupational pension provides eligible to you will be laid down in your statement of employment. If a company scheme is not available to you, then state pension arrangements apply. As a minimum, organization employing 5 or more people are obliged to offer access to a stakeholder pensions scheme if they do not already offer pension provisions. Then, in company employment policy procedure 2, this says an employer provide your wage in cash every week with no supporting paperwork. Is it acceptable? Second question comes, what are the qualifying requirement for maternity allowances from the benefit agency for maternity leave associated with recent employment? The answer is, if the employment provide your wages in cash every week with no receipt, the employment legislation requires that an intimate payslip is provided detailing any deduction made. Then second, regarding the maternity allowances are concerned, employment or self-employment for 26 weeks out of the 66 before the expected week of childbirth are taken care of. So these are the things which usually takes care the employees benefits when they are working in the organization, and there are different laws for the employees who can save their services and they can work very effectively in the organization. When we are talking about the employees benefit and everything, this is the responsibility of the employees also to see that how their organization grow, because if we are giving each and every benefit to the employee, so it is the responsibility of the employee also to see that how they are helping the employee to grow further and do good business for ultimately aim, that is the profitability of the organization. Then there are some MCQs which I have given to you, and I am quite sure that you are in a position to give the answer for these MCQ, as we have discussed a lot regarding the employees benefits and the responsibilities. So, which of the following are required for information to be protected? The answer is, it must have been recorded in a material form. It must not have been previously made available to a public. It must be of the right type, or it must be in the public interest. While employed, employees must carry out their duties with care and skill, not start a competing business, not compete with their employer, or disclose all information to the employer. Then, which of the following statement is true in relation to a situation in which 20 employees are being made redundant at the same time? Employers are not obliged to consult formally. Employers are obliged to consult individually but not collectively. Employers are obliged to consult collectively but not individually, and employers are obliged to consult both individually and collectively. Then, apart from that, there are a few more questions which says that which of the following statement about redundancy payment is incorrect? Then the employer employee relationship must operate within the boundaries of what? Then in employment contracts, rights such as attribution of authorship are known as intellectual property right, moral right, legal rights, or workplace right. So these are few questions which I have given to you, and I am very much confident that you are in a position to give the answer for these questions, and you will be able to understand the employee's right as well as the employee's responsibility towards the organization. This is all from my side for today. Thank you very much.